My fellow flames, welcome back to another Wuthering Waves video, and today this is going to be my 3.6 review video. A lot of you guys enjoy my reviews and are very eager and curious to know my thoughts when it comes down to the Wuthering Waves story. So today we're going to be breaking down 3.6, what I liked about it, and then what I didn't like about it. So starting off, what did I overall think of the story on a scale of 1 to 10? On a scale of 1 to 10 grading, I'm going to give this a solid 8.5 out of 10. It's not a 9, it's not a 10, it's an 8.5 out of 10. That's my initial grading. That is what I feel the story deserves, and I'm going to be going into details why. So, overall, the story was good. The story was solid. It was a good time. I had a good time playing the story. Qing Xiao was a very big highlight. Jing Gran was a very, very important and pivotal character when it comes down to the story, and I like the fact that the story didn't focus on one of the brand new characters but both of them as well, because it shines light on them both. It does. Now, I haven't played the Segway quest because I am holding off on that at this present moment in time, but I will be playing the Segway quest, which I believe is focusing specifically on Jing Gran, and I believe someone said, or a lot of people are saying in my comments, it's between 20 to 30 minutes long. Could be a little bit longer depending on how much longer you take on each portion of it, but overall it's about 20 to 30 minutes long, so I will get round to playing that. But the core MSQ, I think this story had a lot of high hype, very intriguing and interesting moments. This story, for the first time ever, focuses on time travel and focuses on alternate realities and focuses on what could have been in comparison to what is. It's very interesting because this story is about Qing Xiao and Rover essentially going after Muyu, finding out what he's up to, what he's really up to, if there's another villain behind Muyu's plans, and essentially trying to stop him from destroying, ruining, and laying waste to Mengzhou and the Zhangfeng hold. So we are also trying to find out what happened to Xin, because how we are going to solve this problem of Muyu is going to be looking for the Sentinel, because as we know, the Sentinel went missing, so we start off the quest looking for ways to find the Sentinel. And Qing Xiao actually comes down from her mountaintops, from her shrines, offers her help to us and says, look, I know you're looking for the Sentinel, let's look for her together, because I think the reason why we're looking for her is one and the same. I think we're trying to solve the same problem or similar problems, so let's team up. And we find clues about Xin due to Jing Gran as well, because Jing Gran is actually leaving breadcrumbs for Rover and Qing Xiao to follow, because he is actually trying to stop Muyu as well. But Muyu is essentially constantly creating false bodies and creating basically false paths and dead ends for people to go down, so if they think they found him, it was a contingency to make sure that you don't. And Jing Gran is working undercover, working for Muyu to get close to Muyu to find the opportune moment to strike and take him out, which I think is really, really cool, because it adds a layer of what kind of character Jing Gran is. He's smart, very intelligent, very strong as well, by the way. There's a segment in this story where Jing Gran goes all out, by the way, and by the way, it's stated that he didn't pull his punches against Rover because he wanted to test Rover's abilities, and at this point in time, Qing Xiao and Rover didn't know Jing Gran was a hero or a villain. They didn't really know. They thought it was like a grey area. They didn't know whether he was a friend or foe. So when Rover and Jing Gran fought, Jing Gran, to be fair, gave Rover a little bit of a struggle. Like, at first, obviously, he caught Rover off guard. They had a bit of a clash, and Rover kind of went serious eventually, and that's when the tables turned. But Jing Gran is strong, and you can feel the power when Jing Gran is on the field. You feel his presence, you feel his intelligence, you feel his power, and he does have a lot of moments to shine in the story, and I like that. Qing Xiao, this is essentially an MSQ about going to find Muyu. Rover, Qing Xiao, Jingran all eventually team up to find Muyu, which is really, really cool. It was a really, really cool moment. A bunch of moments, actually. And there's also a segment of this quest where Qing Xiao has her character quest moment. This story, the core story, was just over 4 hours long, not including the segue quest. And I'd say an hour to an hour and 20 minutes of this quest was Qing Xiao's story develop, character develop moments. It was around Qing Xiao finding herself, learning to let go of a few things, learning to accept a few things, learning to essentially come to terms with a few things from her past, going forward into her future. Which I thought was really, really cool, but then again, this goes back to an argument that not only me, but many other people and content creators and fans of the game have said, bring back character quests. You could have written this as an MSQ, where you have Qing Xiao, Jingran, Rover teaming up to go find Muyu, and the segment that is strictly about Qing Xiao finding herself and learning to accept, to balance herself, to not lose control of her inner demons, and etc, etc. You could have had a 1 hour and 30 minute character story quest separate to the MSQ. You could have easily written that in there. And you could have had it as a separate quest. You could have had it so it was some more content for you to dive into rather than just incorporating it into an MSQ. I'm someone that wishes we bring back character quests. I am. You know, look at Hiyuki's segue quest. Hiyuki's segue quest, she had 2 segue quests. She had the starting segue quest and she had the closing segue quests. That added up to about an hour and 20 minutes of content, which was only about Hiyuki. Rover wasn't in the picture, it was about Hiyuki. Those 2 segues basically could have been a singular character quest, but due to the plot of the MSQ, it did kind of make sense, but I'm just saying, I still would like to bring back separate character quests rather than incorporating them into the main story quest. My opinion, I'm not critiquing the story for that reason, but I do think it added an hour and a half to the story that could have been separate, you know? So I guess in a sense that is a little bit of a critique, but I'll talk about more of that at the end. One thing that's really interesting is that there's a moment in the story where something happens to Shangfeng Hold that essentially sucks Rover and Qing Xiao into like a black hole dimension vortex thing, like vortex manipulating dimension thing. And essentially you go back in time to before Zhangfeng Hold and the War of the Central Plains when the Thronian first revealed itself happened. It's round about that moment where the war has just concluded. This is the aftermath of the war, and in the original timeline, the Zhangfeng Hold was completely destroyed and it was rebuilt to what we know it is today in the Mengjiao we explore in present day. But it's not, it's still standing strong, and we don't know why, because it's meant to be in ruin. So then we basically find clues, find different helpers, find different characters as we go through the story to figure out who's manipulating the timelines, who's manipulating the dimensions. Obviously it's Muyu, but we need to find the clues and go through puzzles, go through lots of different combat stages to get there. As an actual built story, as a story that is going from A to B to C, I liked it. It follows a very set path. It connects a lot to the 1.0 stuff, and I'll tell you the reason why. This story is very heavily connected to 1.0. So if you're someone that started the game later on when 2.0 came out and you skipped 1.0 and went to 2.0, and you didn't go back to the 1.x realm and the 1.x story, this is going to connect a lot to 1.0 in a sense of it talks a lot about Jue, a lot about the Arbiter, it talks a lot about Huanglong, and it talks a lot about Jinzhou, Jinshi, and the Overthrax. It's this, the Mengjiao and this whole arc is heavily going to be leading us back to either the new Federation, it's going to lead us to somewhere new in the new Federation, or heavily going back to fighting the Overthrax, because the Overthrax is still there. Their threat is still very much present. And this story is constantly dropping Overthrax, constantly dropping the war against the Overthrax, constantly dropping the war that Geshu-Lin fought in. The Midnight Rangers make a return. There's a lot that is very centralistic around Huanglong in terms of lore. And we find out a little bit about the I forgot the goddamn people name, the evil team of this game, the Fractidus, that's it. We find out there's another new overseer of the Fractidus operating behind closed doors, and Muyu essentially disbanded himself from the plans of the Fractidus to achieve immortality. He just wanted to be immortal, he just wanted to achieve immortality and to escape death by any means necessary. And he's doing sinister, cruel, and terrible ways and terrible things to do that. Eventually, the final boss is his immortal body. He's finding a way to cast aside his mortal body to achieve this mechanical immortal one. And that's where we're going. That is where we are going in this story. And the whole story is about Jingran, Rover, Qingxiao foiling his plan, finding out more about what the overarching plan was, who the overseer was in the Fractidus, closing off this alternate timeline dimension, and going back to Mengzhou, where there will finally be peace and prosperity in the realm for the time being, and so we can finally find ways to go and free the Sentinel. Because essentially, spoiler alert, the Sentinel Sheen had to seal herself away because Muyu and the Fractidus were becoming far too strong and far too big of a threat, so she found a way to seal Muyu in a dimension capsule, similar to the one that we saw in Renacita. In that little wayfinding capsule that was the 2.7 main focus, to find the little capsule that the Thronodium wanted. Something similar to that. Not quite the same, but something very similar to that. Sheen trapped Muyu's true self and true body in that dimension, in that alternate timeline dimension, but she couldn't hold him there for long because over time Muyu was gaining strength, gaining power, and he was manipulating the dimensions, manipulating everything that's happening in Mengzhou, in the Zhangfeng hold, and Sheen had to essentially lock herself away to try and keep Muyu there. So she's trapped somewhere still. She's still trapped somewhere. So we haven't solved the Sentinel problem of why she is trapped, why hasn't she revealed herself, because in spirit she shows herself to us and we finally see what she looks like properly and we see her model, but she's still not there physically. She's still kind of trapped somewhere. And to me, this feels like a wild goose chase. To me, this Sentinel Sheen, I'm not going to lie to you, in terms of feats, Sheen seems to be one of the weakest Sentinels, lore-wise and feats-wise. That's what I'm getting. Like, there's even an intense lore drop in this story where Qingxiao is in the past, fighting the war against the Overthrax. We even see Crownless make a return, because we see what happened in the past of Qingxiao. Qingxiao defeats Crownless 3 times because Crownless keeps reviving itself, because the Overthrax keeps reviving Crownless. And we finally find out that Crownless is essentially the true lieutenant and the sword that the Overthrax wields to carve a path for the Overthrax to make its return. Similar to what Dreamless did, but Dreamless was like the next big thing. That was a later creation. Crownless was like the first prototype, I guess. But then what happens is, how the war was won wasn't from Qingxiao. It was the Lord Arbiter Rover from 2-3 centuries, however many years ago, a long time ago, a long time ago. And it's the founding father himself, Rover, riding Jue. He fought the war with Jue. Jue's my goat. Jue's my goat. Jue is still the most powerful Sentinel. I don't care. When there's lore being dropped, when there's lore being dropped in the story, that Rover, Lord Arbiter, decimated the TDs, pushed back Overthrax centuries before the present moment in time we are in today, with Dewey fighting alongside him. Yeah, that was such a cool moment. There's a screenshot out there somewhere where he's literally hovering, holding some spectral energy with his arms folded, aura farming, and Dewey's just like resting next to him. It's so goddamn cool. It's so cool. I lost my shit. I lost my mind. That was so cool. But we find out, you know, a little bit more about Dewey and about Rover in that past and what his role was. He was essentially a fighter of war. He was a war hero. He was brutal in a sense. And that was really, really cool to see. But overall, the story was essentially finding Muyu, foiling Muyu's plan, finding a way to find Sheen. We didn't find Sheen until the very end of the story after we were already defeated Muyu. And that's what it was. Muyu is the main antagonist for the first 2 acts of this story. He serves no major purpose other than he's an antagonist that's meant to lay the groundwork for the Sentinel's return, which is in turn going to either have the Fractidus' Overseer, the new Overseer, make her debut, and then also the Overthrax is probably going to make his return at some point soon. That's what the past 2 patches were. It was a very... This is the conclusion of a kind of... This is a conclusion of an arc. It is. This is the conclusion of an arc of 3.5, 3.6. They are one arc. It's one continued, complete story. Muyu's the main villain. Muyu's laying waste and sieging Mengzhou. You need to stop Muyu. Muyu escapes at the end of 3.5. You finally lead basically an assault against Muyu with Qingxiao and Jingguan. You eventually defeat Muyu. There literally is peace now. Like, you go back to Mengzhou and they literally say there's peace for a time. There's now a little bit of temporary peace because the looming threat is over. Now we need to go find the Sentinel. That's what this story is. It's closing off a chapter, in a sense. It is. But it felt... I like Muyu as a villain, I think Muyu's whole point and Muyu's whole endeavor to become immortal is pretty lazy to me. It's lazy. It's a little bit lazy. It's a very staple, basic plot that many villains in every aspects of media have done. I want to be immortal. I want to be immortal. I want to live forever. I want infinite power to be immortal, etc., etc. That's it. That's the story of 3.5 and 3.6. Why is this happening? He wants to be immortal. What is his end goal? To be all-powerful and immortal. You know? And I think this was a villain that I didn't hate, by the way. But I think this villain was basically a filler villain, a filling villain to set up the true plot being, finally we can free the Sentinel. Finally, the Fractidus can make their debuting return and go, we're back. We were in charge the entire time. Muyu was interesting. He was an interesting character, but he was interesting for a time, and then by the end of it, halfway through 3.6, he was like, I'm trying to manipulate the dead souls to create immortality, to create the ultimate immortal body for me to inhabit. And I think halfway through 3.6, I was like, oh, okay. So that's his plan, just to become immortal. Got you. Okay, that's his entire plan to become immortal. He even says he doesn't care. He doesn't care what happens to this realm. He just wants to be immortal, and then he wants to fuck off. He wants to be immortal, and then fuck off. That's it. That's his grand scheme. I want to be immortal, so I can then piss off and be immortal and powerful. That's it. That's the plan. That's his goal. And he's just doing questionable, dark means to do so. But there you have it. That's why it's like an 8 to 8.5 out of 10. There was a lot of really hype moments. There was a lot of really compelling moments. The characters were really compelling. Jin Guan was compelling. Qing Shao was compelling. But yeah, I'd say my two critiques were Qing Shao's story could have easily been written as an isolated story, but I know it's fine. It's fine to be in this story, but it could have been a separate thing, and it could have been a character story. And also, the end result of what this villain was meant to be was underwhelming. The villain in the end was just trying to be immortal, and I think I was like, oh, okay. Like, he's got a couple of aura farming moments, but it's like he just wants to be immortal. That's your end goal, and you're just, the rest of it is just collateral damage for you to be immortal. That's a boring plan. That's a boring plan. Do you know what you know who he is? He's Zamasu from Dragon Ball Super. Anyone that's a Dragon Ball Super fan, he's Zamasu. He just wants to be divine, immortal, zero mortal plan. I'm above all of you. That's what it is. He's got a god complex. That's what it is. So I'm looking forward to seeing where the next story is finally going, because it looks like we're finally going to be seeing Sheen and freeing the Sentinel. But there you go, guys. That's my thoughts and feelings and my review on the story. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe if you are new. Until next time, my fellow flames, take it easy and have a good rest of your day.